Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Firstly, I'd like to say to Giani Sukha Singh, thank you for inviting me up. My own story with Sikh Helpline is slightly different. Not only did I participate in the bike ride last winter, I've also known Giani Sukha Singh for the best part of the last 10 years. I've seen Giani Sukha Singh make an incredible group of individuals come together and really sort of make it a registered charity, gave it a base. I had an office just over the road and Giani Sukha Singh moved in and I saw him put a structure to this amazing charity together. And my own journey with Giani Sukha Singh is on different levels, and the levels that I know Giani Sukha Singh are quite personal. I don't really make notes, but you know, Giani Sukha Singh saw me share a story on LinkedIn, and the story was about somebody who committed suicide. This was about 10 days ago, Sandwell Dudley train station, just around the corner from here. And I shared this story on LinkedIn. And it was a little bit like, it was a really personal story because if you know Sandwell Dudley, it's not too far from here. Some individuals gone onto the track and finished their life. I then looked back at my own life, and it was exactly 10 years ago when I also stood at platform 1 of Sandwell Dudley station, and I contemplated many times in taking my own life. It was, you know, the most difficult period of my life, and whilst I had the resources around me, if I'm honest with you, I didn't know how to deal with loss. Like all my life, I almost won everything. Education was very easy, friends were very easy, and everything that I ever wanted, I got. And then this one time in 2007, I lost a lot. In fact, I felt as though I lost it all, and I also lost the will to live. So there I am at this platform where this individual only 10 days ago did what I couldn't do. I returned home. He never returned back home. So this was a story that I shared on LinkedIn, and Giani Sukha Singh picked up on it and said, Bobby, could you come in and just do a little 2-minute talk about your experience? Because there's not many people that, you know, will openly turn around and say, yeah, you know what, I absolutely struggled with depression. And I struggled with it in 2008. In fact, 2008 was the most difficult year I ever went through. 9 months of it was almost like I didn't know which way to turn. Today, with Waheguru's Kirpa, I have it all. I have a beautiful family, I have an amazing life, and I can tell you about all of the successes. But the most beautiful thing that I took from that moment is probably just a phone call from my family saying, please come back home. And I knew I had to go back home. I went back home, but this poor soul 10 days ago is never returning back home. You know, could he have had the opportunity of being introduced to Sikh Helpline? You know, what nationality was he? Could we have spoken to him in his language? Could we have prevented that as individuals? Were we aware of what he was going through? I had a family, I had a lot of people around me, yet my own story was such that I thought the end was far better than living. I stand here today and I never made notes, so I've made notes. Reason being, I think this is really important. It's only a few minutes of my life, but I'd like to wrap it in because I can appreciate the time that's running by here. So a little bit about my story, had it all, never experienced losing. I think it's really important to say how to lose. You know, it's really important. How to win number 1 abo. My little 3-year-old, my 5-year-old daughter cannot accept losing in bowling on Wednesday. She was looking at the scores and she was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose. I'm not going to play the final game. I mean, like, that's, you know, for me, it's really bad to look at. Is it not about the participating that matters? So there I am. I'm 27 years old. I don't know how to lose, and I've lost a lot at this moment in time. So I say, look, my own story says, teach them how to lose and how to participate. If it starts at a young age, it's probably a good thing. It's not a bad thing to fail exams. You know, this is all mental preparation for an amazing life later on. All we keep doing is we keep playing for a bigger game and greater success. And we're almost saying, yes, be more lion, be courageous, but, you know, almost take your defeat as your opportunity to get closer to God. Because when you lose, you can almost guarantee that you're going to come to God and say, God, you know what, I can't believe it, I feel really down, I feel really upset. And what does God do? He picks you back up and says, go at it again. Because the one thing Sikhs aren't is we're not defeatists. We will never be defeatists. We will never turn around and say the end is the end. We will always just keep going. That's what our Guru teaches us. Inside our Guru Granth Sahib is 1,000,001 secrets. He says to you, the gems are all inside your mind. But remember, the enemy is also within you. So when Giani Sukha Singh turns around and puts a Sikh helpline for you and says, look, I've got an army of individuals that can help you, he can genuinely help you. He helped me. So the attitude is, it's okay to lose. It's okay to understand it at a very young age. Parents and families should not be encouraging everybody to be winning all the time. You know, you'll have the greatest wins when you actually understand what losing is. So when I put that story out on LinkedIn, Giani Sukha Singh said, please come in and just explain how you felt. In 2008, I was extremely lost. To summarize it, I didn't want to live. I didn't see the beauty in living. I was very inactive. I disconnected from a lot of people and a lot of social networks, and I didn't want to sit with the same friends. And I almost accepted that I wanted to wear a blanket, and this blanket was called depression. And depression in that situation is almost like your best friend. Now, I'm sure when I was 13 years old, when I was at my school, they would have taught me what depression is. But you know what? Unless you're in it, you probably don't really want to understand it. And there's a lot of people sitting here today that probably will never understand what it is. And you're very blessed, but there's others in this room who have probably experienced it and can relate to it. So when you see somebody turning around, you know, almost like pulling back from society, being inactive, always looking sad, down, gloomy, always looking at the pessimistic side and not looking at the optimistic, the chardikala side, you know actually you've got to do something for that individual. You have a choice, and you could build them back up, or you can just ignore it. Or you could turn around and go to Sikh Helpline and say, Gianiji, I've done my little bit, could you please step in? And it's almost like worth knowing that time is critical. You know, the more you're going to leave them in that situation, the tougher it's going to get out of it. It was almost like, you know, there's a hell deeper than hell. So it's like, how deep can you go? That used to be something that I used to say to myself, when am I going to come out of this? I really don't understand. Like, you know, I didn't think it was so bad. And then you go further down, even further. And it's almost like the closest person to you perhaps doesn't understand and can knock you a little bit of confidence that you have got without realizing it. So professionals are required. And I'll tell you what I did. I was Googling for information, and I know nobody's touched upon Google, but you know, you'd say everything is out there, but I'd say it's a very dangerous minefield. What you need is like doctors like Virendra Singh, who has got the research, has got the education behind him, has got the whole sport network. If I told you in 2008, I caught an Air India flight to India one way without telling my parents to basically go to finish myself. So I remember catching this flight, really hot day, Air India, and they all looked at me at Birmingham Airport. I parked my car in like £40 a day car park. I couldn't care less. It's a blue Audi. I'm not coming back. I can't care. Parents didn't know. I'd found my passport, jumped on the flight. I remember the people on the flight saying, "Where's your baggage?" I had 0. So I went there, and then as I got off in India, my mission was, that's it. I'm not coming back to England. It's over, and I'm going to find a way of doing it. Luckily for me, the guy that picked me up from the airport in Delhi realized that something was really wrong with me, and he took me around and he showed me how he lived. He took me to his village, and he said, look how I live and look at where you're from. I remember his eyes looking at my British passport and looking at the opportunity and saying, you're depressed and you're British. Like, this for me is like the most amazing thing. That, you know, you've got this British passport and you've got an opportunity. So sometimes you shouldn't sort of underestimate what you can do with where you are and how you can do it. I know that we all think sometimes, you know, the world around us is collapsing. I remember this whole village, maybe like 50 different kids came running up to me, and he gave me a little morale boost. Actually, I'm not in such a bad position. He then put me on a train to go to Punjab and said, look, don't finish yourself, don't do anything, just go home and get it all sorted. Guys, I was still missing in action for 2 weeks. and my parents were ringing me. Effectively, I did come back, and I remember being meted by police officers at Birmingham Airport. At that point, I then started seeing a few doctors, and I had to make a decision. Which way did I want to do it? Did I want to go down the route of medication, or did I want to do Waheguru? Now, I'm telling you, I chose Waheguru, and for me, it's a very, very simple decision. Why? I don't know. I didn't have to pop pills, and I didn't have to go and see too many people. All I had to do was sit in a Gurdwara and just listen. And as I listened to the message of Waheguru, it was almost incredible, because they spoke about truth, they spoke about seva, they spoke about Simran, they spoke about Hispana, they spoke about, where you are and your purpose in life. They spoke about how this is a dream and it's not going to last forever. They spoke about your pain, and it's not really a pain, it's just your test. And every time I was listening to these messages, it was just like, wow, this is just incredible. And as I found it more and more incredible, guess what? I began living in a different level. Like, if people look at me, they may look at me as a very strange character. You see, what Sikhi teaches us, even if you hurt yourself, turn around and say thank you. Incredible. If you lose it, turn around and say thank you. If you weren't supposed to get it, turn around and say thank you. Whatever he gives you, it gives you for a reason and a purpose. When you're ready for it, he'll give you plenty more. So look, there it is. That's my attitude. That's my story. I'm really sorry that we weren't able to help that brother on that platform 10 days ago, San Wonderly train station. But I'll tell you something, we're losing brothers like that every single day, and sisters like that as well. So our attitude should be, look out for that issue, try to help him, try to teach him the way of the Guru. Don't turn around and overcomplicate things. I just find that what Sikhi teaches you is very, very simple. What we do is overcomplicate it. So why should we overcomplicate it? And why not bring that individual to the right sources? I know that Vrindapal put on a lot of, mental mind charities and everything else that, can help people. Sikh Helpline will make that attachment if one's required. So my sport with Sikh Helpline is obviously doing the bike ride. It's a lot of admiration for Giani Sukha Singh, for the man that he is. What a pillar of society. Reason being, I think it's always nice to come into a Gurdwara and you can actually connect to an individual that speaks in every single language and also understands your situation. And I'm sure he's helping individuals, and he's not telling us how many he's helping. What can we do? What can we do? What, open up another charity to compete with Sikh Helpline? What about just supporting Sikh Helpline? What about just turning around and saying that little bit of this one, that little bit of thing, that little bit of, we take home a lot of money. What about just giving 10% or even 1% of it so that he can turn around and touch somebody's life? Because you know what? It was actually you that touched their life because it came from your Daswand. I don't think people realize, we're more engulfed in trying to take people down by saying that charity does this, he does that, she does that. In fact, what we should do is when we give, don't actually question where it's going and what it's doing. Just accept it's doing something good. So, on that note, and if I've said too much, please forgive me. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.